2 years had passed, and Joey was no closer to getting answers. Day after day, she kept encountering the same unkempt, haggard sight in her neighborhood in the Southern California desert, and it seemed that nobody else was going to intervene to make a change. It all depended on her, but she knew she couldn't do it alone. She had to call for help from Los Angeles. Only together would they be able to tackle this creature. Like most animals around the world, this creature must have had a home or a habitat to retire to every day. After all, it was seen every day in the same spot. In fact, people around the neighborhood had seen this animal out and about on a regular basis, so they even assumed it had not been born into a stray life, but couldn't be sure if and when this poor creature had any owners. No one had decided to go through the trouble of approaching the animal or dropping it off at a shelter. Instead, it was left to its own devices in the hot sun. However, this did not mean a certain end for this animal. While most people passed her by without a care, one person was not going to leave it to the elements and would soon discover something troubling along the way. After some digging, a local woman called Joey discovered this shabby animal was a bona fide pet and had not been born into the stray life. Whether her owners were loving or not is a question left up in the air, as one day her family decided to abandon her outside of a Southern California desert community. A newly homeless Abby would eventually wander her way into a mobile home park where she'd cross paths with Joey. This big-hearted woman would feed Abby and ended up being her lifeline for 2 years. While the two didn't form a particularly strong bond, they did work out somewhat of an understanding. Joey would end up giving her a daily meal. She'd call out and Abby would come out of the bushes to get her food, but never would let Joey touch her or get near her. While all seemed okay in the beginning, something began to alarm Joey. Abby's appearance began to give Joey some serious concerns. It was clear that Abby was in bad shape and that she'd only get worse as the weeks passed by. Her hair had grown over her face, her coat was extremely matted, and certain areas of her coat had even twisted into dreadlocks. Abby had stopped resembling a dog and looked more like a black mop. Joey felt like she needed to get her hands on the dog to truly help her. With that in mind, she tried harder to gain Abby's trust, but nothing worked. It got to the point where she couldn't stand looking at Abby anymore. After 2 years, she finally realized that she had to take new measures in helping the dog. Daily feedings and sweet words were no longer enough. Joey decided that it was time to get Abby some professional help. While most would just call up the local dog pound or shelter, Joey didn't want to go down that route. If she did, Joey knew there would be only a slim chance that Abby would actually get a second lease on life. More likely, she'd be euthanized. She looked at her options in terms of rescue shelters and eventually decided to call Hope for Paws. The Los Angeles-based rescue organization assembled a team consisting of Eldad, Loretta, and Joanne. Yet despite their eagerness to help, this wouldn't be a quick job for the team. Given the location of the little dog, this wouldn't be a quick in-and-out mission for the Hope for Paws team. They would find themselves driving almost 3 hours east of Los Angeles into the desert. It was there that they met up with Joey in her mobile home park and got the goods on Abby. Joey called out to Abby, and the little dog eventually emerged from her hiding spot. The team wasted no time and immediately got to work on luring Abby towards their truck. The team was used to getting the best of many dogs, but Abby was not going to give in to them so easily. Their first attempt would fail hard. It was going to take more than some baby talk and name-calling to get Abby to comply with them. The team was going to find her soft spot and outsmart her. Eldad whipped out a veggie burger and tried winning her through a tempting meal. However, Abby was no fool. The little dog walked up to the burger and took a sniff and taste. They had all perhaps been anticipating that she'd go nuts for the treat and be lured to the team's truck, but Abby instantly rejected the vegetarian food. If they wanted to lure her, they'd need to step up their efforts a bit. It shouldn't come as a great shock that Abby didn't exactly do backflips over the veggie burger. Generally, dogs aren't going to be amazed by something veggie-based. The team decided to raise the stakes and whipped out a beef burger. Abby's senses were immediately triggered as the smell of grilled beef filled her snout. Abby couldn't hold herself back any longer. The desire for that juicy burger outweighed all of her fears. The shaggy neighborhood dog greedily consumed the burger. The team swiftly cooked up the plan of leaving a burger trail leading to their truck. That, mixed with some baby talk, further encouraged Abby to come towards them. Now, within arm's grasp, they busted out a trap that she couldn't break free from. As soon as Abby was within arm's reach, Loretta and Joanne tossed a net on top of her. Though the burger had previously distracted her, the ratty dog was immediately overpowered by fear, and like any dog in that situation, began to lash out. As Abby struggled and bit on the rope, the team began trying to comfort her with warming coos. Perhaps it was the burger or the human touch that she hadn't felt in years, but the nippy, stray neighborhood dog began to calm down. It was as if Abby had been brought back to the days of old when she was beloved by her very own family. In no time at all, Abby was allowing them to stroke and hold her. That said, the restoration of Abby was far from over. Before they even put Abby in the truck, the rescue team whipped out a pair of scissors and decided to give her a new outlook on life. Loretta cut the overgrown bangs, which had long skewed Abby's vision. For the first time in years, Abby was able to get a clear look at the world around her. With Abby now caged in the back of the truck, the team bolted out of the desert and back to Los Angeles. As they came through the doors with little Abby, the rescue workers there couldn't believe the state of her condition. They placed the little dog on a table and began the long process of discovering the dog underneath that mangled fur coat. They wasted no time and immediately brought out the clippers and buzzer. Long hair strands began tumbling to the shelter floor as they began revealing the Abby that had been living under it all. As it turned out, the dog had over a pound of excess hair covering her body. Most of the dog's hair had become matted with dirt, trash, and feces. This made certain areas of her coat especially hard to cut, but the team eventually powered through it. Once the hair was gone, they gave Abby the very first bath she'd had in over 2 years. A vet was later brought in to take a look at Abby, and that's when they discovered something alarming. It suddenly became apparent that Abby's problems didn't stop at her overgrown coat. They discovered that one of the biggest concerns surrounding the little dog was that she had a hernia. Luckily, vets were able to catch it before it was too late. However, the medical issue wasn't something that could be cured with pills or rest. She had to have surgery. Abby proved to be a trooper and quickly recovered from her operation. It was a recovery that shouldn't shock anyone. After all, a dog doesn't survive for 2 years in a desert by being dainty and delicate. While she clearly trusted the doctors by that point, it took Abby a long time to warm up to strangers and other animals. Nonetheless, it wouldn't be long before they began to notice changes in Abby's behavior. From being a furball in the desert to being clean in LA, Abby had gone through quite a journey. After going into surgery for her hernia, the little dog was spayed, vaccinated, and microchipped. Once a couple weeks of recuperation had passed, the once fragile Abby began getting along swimmingly with other animals and most people. The folks at Hope for Paws definitely felt that Abby was now ready for a forever home. All they needed to do was to find her a foster home in the meanwhile. But that was a process that could take weeks, and in some cases even months. As Abby hopelessly awaited her foster home, 2 unexpected volunteers stepped forward. When all was said and done, Abby was lucky enough to be taken in by the very same people who rescued her. Despite already owning a dog, Eldad and Loretta had taken it upon themselves to give Abby a foster home until someone would step forward and adopt her. Given how loving Abby turned out to be, it didn't take long for her to get adopted and find her forever home with a new family. If someone saw Abby today, they would never be able to guess that she went through a world of trauma, a life begging for scraps at a mobile park on the outskirts of a desert. Once her story went viral, it got a very surprising reaction from the masses. Dog lovers of the world were touched by Abby's rescue and couldn't thank the rescue team at Hope for Paws enough. One woman named Darlene wrote the following: "Thank you for all the time you fed her and you took part in her rescue and gave her a loving home. Sad how she was abandoned. It's a blessing that she has a second chance." Another man wrote in by saying the following: "God bless you for saving this poor little girl and finding her a forever home. She looks like a completely different dog. She's gorgeous." Despite the happy ending, there was something that didn't sit well with the people. While people's initial reaction was happiness for the little dog, many understandably couldn't grasp the fact that Abby was left to deteriorate on the streets for 2 whole years before someone finally called for help. For some, it was a mere question, but for others, it was enough to spark outrage. Nefeli Samios spoke for the masses when she said, "Beautiful dog, happy ending. How could a dilapidated dog in that condition be left on the street for so long? If it was me seeing her, I would act immediately. So would my neighbors." That said, Abby's case isn't anything new among stray dogs.